Hi everyone, it's Penny Black and Jill Foster here with another PB&J card class, and this is another in our series of videos about finding peace through painting. And again, this is just a reminder that the act of painting, even with our card making hobby, requires focus, but it can really take us away from our daily worries, and I'm all for that. Painting can lead to relaxation and a sense of calm, and every time when I paint, I know that I really do truly slow down. And that is something I'm trying to do more of, and I'm glad that painting is something that can help me do that. Now, in this video series, we've been using Penny Black's new liquid watercolor inks, and we're going to continue to do so today. These are a set of inks. There's 35 inks in total. They're very vibrant, but practical and joyful color, and I'm really hoping through this video series you're getting a sense of how you can use them in a way that suits you and brings you peace when you are painting and coloring. So today's video is all a focus on the browns in this collection, the neutrals in this collection. Sometimes we don't think of those when we're building our palette, but they really are useful and helpful and make the rest of the color shine. So we have chocolate, vanilla, peach, and milk chocolate today. So let's take a look at each of those colors. Here they are in the bottles. Nice large bottles. You're getting a lot of ink, so you know that you can use, like, you're never going to run out of these inks. I've made so many cards already with them, and I can't even tell I've used any ink. It takes just a dot of the ink. It's very concentrated to do your painting. I also have our brush set, and here is my palette. Now, if you want more information or you're just now finding us, make sure you check out my introductory video on how I set up my palette. And there's lots of other options and ways to use these inks. You don't have to have a palette and a setup like this, but check out that introductory video. I'm going to put a link to that down in our YouTube description box below. So I am going to just reconstitute my ink here by putting a drop of the colors I'm using into the palette. You can also reconstitute what's left over by using water and mixing it all up, but I just like to put another drop right there and use it right out of the palette, and I find that keeps it nice and concentrated. I'm not having to water anything down. And this is in my little browns section of my palette, and I'll give you a look at each of these colors in action. So the chocolate color, a very nice rich chocolate. You can go very dark with it or fade it out to light. It is definitely on the warm red side of browns, which I like, and I find that's really nice for, like, when I use this color for critters, for stems, for branches. I think that's really a nice color for that. Milk chocolate is very similar. It's just going to be much lighter. Now vanilla, this color is really nice. You can layer it underneath these chocolate and milk chocolate colors to sort of tone them down to give them a little bit more of a gray feeling or less of a red, but it's beautiful on its own. It's great for backgrounds. It's great if you like to paint people. So vanilla and peach are very nice together for critters and people. All of these colors can be used for that. And just so you know, I will have a bonus video coming up next where I will show you some of my favorite combinations from this palette for painting people, hair, skin, and critters too. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on that bonus video coming up very soon. So there are those brown colors. Another way that you can sort of test out and use your colors is to paint some die cuts, which is what I've done here, giving you another look at how you can use these colors singly or blend them together to get another look. So I have stamped this beautiful bird and flowers from our Feathered Kindness stamp set. And I'm just using a PITT artist pen in an extra small journaling tip. It's a waterproof pen just to darken the eye and a little bit of the beak, because I stamped this using Memento Toffee Crunch ink onto Canson 140-pound cold press watercolor paper, and all that's going to be listed for you down below, so don't worry if you didn't catch all that. But I like that this gives it a no line watercolor look. But it is hard to see the eyes and a little bit of the beak sometimes. So I like to just darken them up with some black. You can also just stamp these images in black. Cut a bunch of paper to a standard size card, like 4¼ by 5½ inches, and stamp on top with these images in black ink. It's like you're making your own little card making coloring book, and leave those out, and you can just walk into that whole painting process. Now I started here on this bird using chocolate, and I'm going to keep doing that, picking up the paint from the palette where it's most concentrated, especially those areas here in the palette. See that little bit moving around in there? That's a part that was dried and is starting to reconstitute with the new ink. That is going to be like the ultimate in rich, deep color. And so I'm like, when you cook, I don't know, I don't cook much, but if I did, and I've heard that the bits at the bottom of the pan are supposed to be like the best flavorful bits. Those little bits in the palette that as they're reconstituting and they kind of move around in there like a little chunk, you can kind of see that in my well. That's going to be this really rich concentrated ink, which you can see there on the bird's feathers when I'm putting that down. So I'm going to put that most concentrated color where I want it to be darkest, rinse off my brush, pat it dry on my paper towel, and then go back and just blend that out. And you can see you can go from dark to that light color, and it's just beautiful. That's all just with one color. So far all I've used is that chocolate color. So I'm going to add it here on this part of the bird. Don't be afraid too, when you're painting those feathers and those wings, to leave a little bit of white at the tip of the feather where they're layering over another layer. That's going to add a lot of life to your image. And I'm just going to go here while it's still wet and just add a little bit of that right over the lines that the stamp has provided for you. And it's still a little bit wet, so those are just going to blend in really nicely. And I'm going to continue here to work on his tail feathers. So picking up that concentrated ink right from the palette, putting it where I want the color to be darkest. And the real beautiful fine tips of these penny black paintbrushes also make this very easy to do this detail, to sort of feather it on. I'll rinse off the brush, pat it dry. Actually, there I realized I think I want a little darker color, so I put that on there and just blended that out. So I'm going to go ahead and dry that so that if I'm working in areas near it, it doesn't just start to bleed and blend into the wet area around it. Now I'm going to pick up that vanilla color, and I'm going to add that in some of these areas where I want it to be lighter. Again, these light colors in your palette are so helpful. It's easy to start with just a light and go in and be able to put the light down and blend it out. Darker colors, you can lighten them by adding more water. You certainly can do that, but there is something very handy about already having a few colors to start in that light tone. It makes it very easy to blend from that color into white, or just pick it up and paint your image in without having to think too much about how much water to add to water it down. So here I'm going to grab that milk chocolate and put that down here near his tummy. Put it down where I want it darkest, rinse off my brush, pat it dry, and then just go back and blend that. And then I'll go ahead and dry that. When I see that I really like it, I just go ahead and dry it before I go on to the next step. I feel like it kind of just freezes it in that moment where I liked it. Now I'm going to grab the peach, and this is a color, you can use it in lots of different ways, but it is just a nice sort of life fresh color. So a little bit goes a long way, but it does just sort of brighten things up and give it all a little bit of life. So I'm picking it up without too much water on my brush and just adding a touch of it here and there. And I'll just rinse off my brush, pat it dry, and go back and blend. And you can see if I want to darken things up, I can just go back, add a little more of that milk chocolate color there, and blend it out. We'll go ahead and dry that a little bit. Now, you could certainly stop right there, but I wanted to add just a little bit of yellow to this guy. So I grabbed our butter color. So this is just a very light yellow, and I'm just putting a little touch of that here on the bird. And I just thought that was really happy and added also, I think, a nice contrast with those pink flowers too. So just a little bit of yellow on there. Wouldn't have to do that step, but another example of where those light colors are really handy for just adding a little touch of something to your stamped images. Here I'm going to get his feet, just using a little bit of medium gray to paint those in. And we'll get his beak too. So there is that bird featuring all of those different browns. Now I thought I would show you too how I painted these flowers. As with all of these colors, you can mix and blend them like I did on the bird, or you can use single color selections. So for example, here I'm painting this flower and I'm just going to use the color Rosy. So I am picking that up out of the palette. It's most concentrated, so I'm putting it where I want it darkest. Then I rinse off my brush, pat it mostly dry, and then go back and blend that. So I can get that fade from dark to light with just that one color and do all the flowers with that color. And that is seriously, I love that pink. I just love it. You can see how easily you can just go around and put that again where I want it darkest. That's coming right out of the palette where it's most concentrated, rinsing off my brush, patting it dry, and going back to blend it. And then for the center of the flower, I just used a little bit of zinnia. And then on the leaves, I am using the colors of grass and pine. So I'm putting down the color of grass first and blending that out. So concentrated from the palette, rinsed off my brush, blended it with water, and then right on top of that where I want it to be darkest, just a little touch of pine. And that gives some variation to those leaves. And then there's that zinnia going in for the center of the flower. So I used the matching cutout die and added that to my card with a frame and a little background inking. I'll link some videos that explain how to do that down in the YouTube description box below. So I thank you so much for watching. This card completes all of the color families, but like I said, I have one more bonus Find Peace Through Painting video coming up featuring how to do all of some of my favorite combinations for critters. So make sure you're subscribed, and we will see you soon with more painting. Happy stamping!